Birdman, the unexpected virtue of ignorance. That's a long title, and to simplify that and make my life easier, for the rest of this review, we're just going to refer to this movie as Birdman. Now this movie stars Michael the Beetlejuice Batman, I'm Mr. Mom Keaton. Now in this movie, Michael Keaton's character plays a washed up actor whose claim to fame was playing a superhero back in the early 1990s. And in an attempt to reclaim his past glory, he puts on a Broadway play where he makes himself the main character. Now like I said a few seconds ago, Michael Keaton did play Batman in 1989 and 1992. And to pick him for this role in this movie is almost a perfect casting choice because he essentially is this character. Now is Michael Keaton washed up? I wouldn't say so, but he has seen better days, especially in the 1980s and 1990s. And the movie also stars actor Edward Norton. And I would say out of all the characters in this film, I found Edward Norton's character the most intriguing because he plays this overly serious method actor and he has to like get into the mood before every scene. He wants to change dialogue. He's like, it doesn't feel right. And then he has like a tanning bed brought into his dressing room so he can get into the character. You know what? Thinking about all the actors in this movie, and this movie is based on a guy who's a washed-up actor who played a superhero in 1992, all the actors in this movie, besides Zach Galifianakis, have been in a comic book superhero movie. Yeah, Edward Norton was the Hulk, Michael Keaton was Batman, and then you had Emma Stone who played Gwen Stacy in The Amazing Spider-Man. Coincidence? Yeah, so anyway, let's get back to the review, and before we move on, there's one more thing I wanted to mention about Edward Norton's character in this movie, and that is, I think Edward Norton essentially played himself, because I've heard a lot of stories about the making of movies where he's a very difficult actor to work with. Now going into this movie, I had a few ideas what it was about, and I thought it was gonna be like this dark comedy where this guy loses his mind. I didn't really understand how weird and bizarre the movie was going to be once I got into it. So yeah, to sum up the movie Birdman, well, it is weird, it is strange, it is bizarre, it is a dark comedy, it is a drama, and at one point in the movie it turns into like this big action over-the-top bloated movie, but it's so aware of what it's doing when it does it. The social commentary is great. So yeah, the movie Birdman, it's all these different things, and at times it really works, at other times the tone changes up so much, you're like, what am I supposed to be feeling right now? But the thing I most enjoyed about this movie is how self-aware it actually is, because at times throughout the movie it gets very dramatic, but characters comment on the situation and say, yeah, things are getting too dramatic, let's cut this bullshit out. And I really enjoyed that aspect about the movie, because the movie is self-aware, but it's not to the point where it's campy or over the top. It still takes itself serious, but it lets the audience know, yeah, we know what we're doing, but just stay tuned for a few more seconds because we're gonna do something else. Now, so far throughout this review, I've been talking about how weird and different this movie is and how it's not your typical movie. And yeah, let's just continue on with that theme. And this movie is about a stage play. But this movie itself could be a stage play on Broadway, but they take that concept and camouflage it as a movie. Okay, let me explain what I'm talking about. Has anyone ever seen the movie Glengarry Glen Ross? That movie's based on a Broadway stage play, and the movie itself feels like a stage play, because in the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, there's very few settings in the film. It takes place in like an office and a few other locations, and there's all these lengthy dialogue scenes between the characters. Yeah, it essentially does feel like a play, and that's how the movie Birdman feels. It feels like a play, but it's about a play, but it's a movie. So yeah, that's the best way I can possibly explain what I'm talking about. And no one, I think one of you knows what I'm talking about. So yeah, that'll work for me. Let's just keep talking. Now let's talk about the way that this movie was made. And if you pay close attention throughout this movie, from a technical standpoint, this movie is jaw-dropping. And when I say jaw-dropping, I don't mean in the sense when you go to see like a $300 million blockbuster movie and has all these big CGI action sequences. I mean in the sense that this movie took true talent and craftsmanship to pull off some of the scenes in this movie. Because when you have a big budget movie, you can take a turd, polish it up real nice, and turn it into a disco ball where it fools the audience. Yeah, that movie wasn't fooling anyone, but anyway, that was just one example. But yeah, the movie Birdman, it has all these extensive tracking shots where it doesn't have any cuts, the camera just moves across the scenery, the actors have this extensive dialogue back and forth, everyone hits their cues, and the camera never cuts. And I can't imagine how many takes it took to get some of these scenes just right. But yeah, let's talk about Birdman himself, and that is Michael Keaton's performance in this movie. And well, Michael Keaton's a pretty decent actor. Even though he does those little Michael Keaton mannerisms at times, you know what I'm talking about. You wanna get nuts? I'll get nuts. Let's get nuts! Now let me give you my final flick thoughts on the movie Birdman. The movie is called Birdman, but don't go in expecting a lot of scenes with the character of Birdman. Even though he's phenomenal, and every scene he's in, he steals it, and he almost sounds like Marv from Sin City. That's just a side note. But anyway, yeah, he's in the movie for maybe like 4 or 5 minutes, but when he's there, it's phenomenal, and the movie could have used more of that. So I'm going to give the movie Birdman an A-. Yeah, it's just there's some elements in this movie that I felt could have just been weeded out. Even though they're weird and bizarre, and they're in there for the sake of being weird and bizarre, I enjoyed them overall. I just felt like some of the things that happened in this movie could have been taken away. So overall, the movie's phenomenal from a technical standpoint and a performance standpoint. So anyway, guys, here's my question to you, and let me know down below if you've seen the movie Birdman, what did you think about it? Or what is the weirdest, strangest, most bizarre movie you've ever seen? Yeah, let me know that down below in the comments section. I'm curious to see where you guys go with that. So anyway, guys, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What are you still doing here? Well, since we're both here, I might as well talk about Dumb and Dumber 2. Here are my quick thoughts for the movie, since I'm not going to make a video review. Dumb and Dumber 2 is essentially the same shit you've already seen before. They rehash all the same gags, but this time around, they're not as good because they've already been done before. This movie's definitely going to be forgettable, unlike the original, which is kind of like a cult classic now. The third act of the movie completely falls apart. Overall, it's an easy to watch movie, like you just shove popcorn in your mouth, but it's not a very good movie. Yeah, it just doesn't compare to the original in any way whatsoever. So yeah, I'm gonna go now. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.